Welcome back to Time Attack. This time it is the final at Anglesey. This is the session we've all been waiting for. This is the session that awards those big championship points, at least for our full championship drivers. Michael Birch there, first out on the scene, or at least one of the first out, doing his outlap in that Tegua Racing Honda Civic, finishing second in Pocket Rocket last time out, if I remember correctly. Right there in the fight with Andrew Kime in that Citroen Saxo. So the Pocket Rockets, if I remember correctly, were the top three finishers in qualifying overall. Very fast little cars indeed. And for this particular session, for the finals, I'm joined by Susie Wallace, who was in the pit lane, but that didn't quite work out, so now she's in the box with me. How you doing, Susie?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Alexi. It's a little bit different to be up here with you. It's been nice down in the pit lane, just having a bit of a chat to people and just seeing how the day's been going.
So hopefully, as the action unfolds, there we go, look at that, it reflects, the little ident reflects who's sitting here. That's cool. Anyway, it's the little things, yeah, cool. So then, Michael Birch, you can see him. He is the first to set a flying lap, goes straight for the kill with a 119.6, putting him fastest overall so far. We are only a few minutes in, of course. This is their first flying lap for many of our drivers. And also, throughout a lot of the day, we were saying how the sessions don't really count, the sessions don't really qualify, they aren't classified, there's no reason to push hard. Of course, this is the session that awards those big points for the championship. So this is when we're finally going to see our drivers running at their full potential, at least those drivers who are still here. Because, for example, I know there are a couple of drivers, especially Pocket Rocket, Susie, who aren't here with us for the final. What's going on?
Yeah, so I was talking to Mike Birch down in the pit lane, and he was saying so he's never driven this track before. There was a test day on yesterday, but he didn't make it to that. So it's literally his first day driving on track today. And yeah, he's trying to catch up with, I think, Andrew Kime, and get some time behind him.
Tim Bedford there doing what he does best, getting very sideways. We were awaiting that all day. Finally, he's delivering now that he's pushing a little bit harder. Also, Susie, Nicholas Stott, I can't see him here. What's going on with that?
Yeah, I think he's just had a really unfortunate day. He's had some issues that I think he was having at Alton Park as well, and he's having the engine cut out under the ECU over 4,500 RPM, and also a worrying kind of smell of fuel in the car. So yeah, he's decided to call it a day today, I'm afraid, but yeah, hopefully we'll see him back at Donington.
Super. I mean, this is the thing, in Time Attack, a lot of these drivers are privateers. They're running off their own budget. And so, of course, they're not necessarily going to be taking risks with their cars if they still need to get it home, they need to bring it to the next round. I mean, having that hard cut at 4,000 RPM, he is trying to do Time Attack. He does really want to use all of those revs that are available.
Yeah, and he actually wasn't meant to be in the country. He actually lives in the US. He was meant to go back to the US. wasn't meant to be around for the Anglesey round. But unfortunately, because of COVID, he got stuck here. So, he turned up to Anglesey, and it's just not been his day, unfortunately.
Okay, I didn't actually know that he wasn't based in the UK.
Yeah. So, it's been good to have him here, but yeah, he's not had a good day. But we will see him back at Donington, so hopefully he manages to track down the Gremlins by then.
Cool.
Oh, big lockup there.
Yeah, big lockup from Tom Moon in the Aggravation Racing Subaru Impreza wagon. We've seen that happen a few times already with this specific driver. With all the lumps and bumps in the track, it does make trying to nail your threshold braking really difficult. And Tom Moon there getting that big lockup, potentially a big flat spot as well, which is not what you want here in the final. But there you go. Andrew Kime, then. Let's just take a look at those timing screens. You can see him on the bottom of your screen as well, the little stopwatch. Andrew Kime in the number 45 machine, having set a purple best sector Now currently on Sector 2, currently fastest of all. Let's see over the next few seconds whether he'll be able to improve on that. Stephen Wilkinson on your screen right now. Tim Bedford goes fastest in class, Clubman class, in that Mazda RX-8. So Andrew Kime then just coming around to finish his lap, having set that purple first sector. As you can see on the bottom of your screen, that little purple line. And now we just need to see what color. Purple in the second line as well. Purple in both sectors. Andrew Kime goes faster than anybody in this session so far. Fastest in class, Pocket Rocket. Again, top 3 spots occupied by the same 3 Pocket Rockets. Andrew Kime, Paul Waddington, and Michael Birch.
Yeah, he's absolutely flying out there, Andrew Kime, today. A few people have been saying to me in the pits he's the one they've been chasing, but yeah, he's absolutely just setting blistering times out there today.
And we've also, so we haven't really seen a great deal of the number 170 car of Owen Hillman, the Pro Alloys machine. Now, he is down as being a single round entry, but, I mean, he's done a lot of those. Much like the GizFab entry, which is allegedly a single-round entry, but we see them here time after time. Let's just have a look. Are we getting any comments over here? But, Kieran, thank you very much for your encouragement. We take the good with the bad, so keep it coming. Corey Jones, they're saying, come on, Team Confusion Motorsport. Team Confusion, of course, running in second right now. Paul Waddington in that Ford Fusion, setting a fastest lap of 1 minute 19 seconds. And Chris Butcher, you can see in that Lexus ISF, fastest in class so far, class being Clubman Plus with a 1 minute 19.5. You can see that Lexus ISF, his daily driver, just rolling around and pitching on that road bias suspension. Meanwhile, Stuart Tranter in the Retro Racing Rover 220 Tomcat, again, also delivering the goods, leading his respective class, Classic and Retro. And it's been an interesting battle to see develop. Good to have Classic and Retro back, where we've had Stuart Tranter in this machine and also Antonio Giovinazzo in the 3GS Motorsport Alfa Romeo 155. Is he out on track right now? Yes, so his current best lap time is 1:37.3. Again, Antonio Giovinazzo not having done loads of Time Attack recently, even though having been around Time Attack for absolutely ages. So Anglesey being a new track for a lot of people, as Susie mentioned. And so Antonio Giovinazzo then just taking the day to shake things down, get a feel for things, and hopefully we'll be seeing a lot more of him in the near future. So Stuart Tranter then, it's great to see a car like this Rover 220 Tomcat, which isn't something that you see every day, let alone in Time Attack, and following that around for half a lap, that was a real pleasure, because that is quite a special machine. Andrew Hawes then in this Tarox entered number 34 Mini Challenge 210. So having set a class best first sector, being the Clubman class, so really in the fight there with Tim Bedford in that Mazda RX-8. So let's just have a look. Where is he on the standing? He's pretty... There we go. So the gap between him and Bedford is 0.4 of a second. Not actually too much. Let's see whether he delivers the goods coming across the line. He goes fastest in class, displacing Tim Bedford from that class lead. So Andrew Hawes then putting himself 0.7 seconds clear of his nearest rival, Tim Bedford.
Yeah, so I was having a chat with him earlier in the pits, and he was saying that he's having to completely change the suspension setup on the car, or the geometry setup actually, sorry. And so the track is a lot more right-handers here, so yeah, he's stiffening that up, and looks like it's really paid off for him then.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's what you were saying, Susie, there's a lot more right-handers than most tracks. I mean, it does still, I was trying to work it out, it is still clockwise, but it involves a lot of right-handers. And so it's a different challenge for drivers, and they're trying to understand how to set up their car for that. And there you can see paying dividends. That's probably going to be a key factor in today's finishing order, is how well the drivers deal with the challenge of a novel track. You don't often get that unless it's an international series. You know, generally speaking, if it's a national series, you're just going to be going to the same places over and over. So it's rare to see a new calendar just drop. Like a video game DLC that no one's driven before. So it's interesting to see how that's impacting today's running. So we have 3.5 seconds remaining. So Andrew Hawes, there you go. Susie was just talking about him. He goes faster still, building on that class lead, now having found about a second extra time. So he's now lapping in the 1:20s, nearly just dipping into the 1:19, so 1:20.08. So Andrew Hawes there really pulling out the goods for the final. Again, this being the session that really scores those big points. Meanwhile, Stuart Tranter there in that Rover 220 Tomcat. Again, we've got the pleasure of riding along with him for a couple of laps. Absolute joy to see that car. And let's have a look then at Owen Hillman, the Pro Alloys Mini Cooper S. He is currently running 4th in Pocket Rocket, 7th fastest overall with a 1:20.7. Meanwhile, Stuart Tranter goes faster still, setting a personal best and class best lap time in that Rover 220 Tomcat. Again, both of our Classic and Retro entries down as single round entries, but of course, both having done a few rounds this year. So interesting to see how Stuart progresses throughout the season. Let's have a look at our times then with a few minutes of the session remaining. Andrew Kime first with a 1:16.6. So really a considerable lead over his opposition. Meanwhile, Andrew Hawes goes faster still, even if it's just a tiny bit. I think he found 100th there. But he could still try to dip under the 1:20s. It's definitely within reach. He's 0.02 of a second off that, and his closest opponent then, Tim Bedford, in that Mazda RX-8, 1.1 seconds adrift of that. Adrift, of course, being very appropriate word for Tim Bedford, who's used to taking most of these tracks sideways. Even though that's not the most orthodox way to set a quick lap, that is how Tim Bedford knows how to do it best. And you can see then his headlights on as he signals to everybody around him that he is on a fast lap and he is not to be impeded. You can see it there just pitching around on that suspension as it goes from the left to right across Siemens and into bus stop and now into turn 1. To take that checkered flag goes Tim Bedford on his daily driven Mazda RX-8. So Andrew, hang on, let's have a look. At the very top of the leaderboard then is Andrew Kime in that Citroen Saxo, the barn work motorsport. Citroen Saxo being the quickest of all in this session, and pretty much that tone was set right from the beginning of the day. Andrew Kime has been very fast all day. Antonio Giovinazzo there again. A pleasure as always to see him back with us in Time Attack, channeling those classic touring vibes in that Alfa Romeo 155 V6, if I remember correctly. And yep, representing here at Time Attack today for 3GS Motorsport. Might be 3Gs. Because there's Giovinazzo, I know there's at least 2 of them, maybe there's 3 of them, 3Gs. Who knows, perhaps they can jump into the comments and tell us. Let's see what's happening over here. A few of you guys jumping in with the feedback, thank you very much. Eden Young there, off of Team Gizfab, saying zoom, zoom, zoom. Unsure what that means, but you do you, bro. I'd love to see it. Again, more love there for Team Confusion. 1, 2, a whole bunch of people. So, yep, good. Team Confusion. Some say... Actually, I should probably read these to myself before I read them out loud. We've already seen some pretty appalling language on this commentary so far. Here we go. Let's do it. Team Confusion and Pro Alloys and Team Norris Design. So Dan Dancer there, unable to decide who he's supporting. He's just throwing his flag behind everyone. Sam Reuter saying, here's Sam Reuter saying, here's to hoping the mighty Fusion carries on its streak of either putting it on the podium or putting it on its roof. Obviously on a podium. We do not want to see cars on their roof, obviously. Daddy James Hunter saying, feel the rhythm, feel the ride, get on up, it's Fusion time. Yeah, the Team Confusion gang is it's out in force today, so good to see. Next up then is club finals. Susie, we're edging more into your territory where we have... Oh, we don't have any Evos in the club. I thought Club 4-Wheel Drive would be full of Evos. No, it's just Subarus. So you'll really come into your own once we get into Pro. But I know James Dover in the Honda Integra DC5, the number 400 entry, he had a bit of a mishap during testing. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so they came down for testing yesterday and had a few laps, I think, literally on his second or third lap, and absolutely stripped all of the teeth off fourth gear. So completely destroyed his gearbox. That seemed like it should have been his race day over, but they managed to find a gearbox, and actually quite local in Holyhead. They managed to source that, they managed to get that onto the car, and then they're back on track today. And yeah, James doing pretty well today. So yeah, it's a great story. I mean, there's all these stories that, you know, it's part of Time Attack. Lots of teams going to great lengths to keep their cars on track and enable the drivers to get out for another lap.
I mean, it's not unheard of to see. You know, you hear this stuff all the time, like you're saying, Susie, where the thing breaks, especially when you're there over a few days, and you have that appeal of thinking, look, I am still here tomorrow. If I fix this tonight, I can be back on track tomorrow. And so James Dover here testing on Saturday. And then doing that late night, you know, Facebook marketplace search, who's local, who's got a gearbox. Luckily, people in Wales are absolutely mad for fast Hondas, for those Valley Touge runs. So he managed to find somebody local selling that a gearbox for a Honda Integra Type R of all things, which apparently shares it with the EP Civic. So there you go. So he managed to get that back on track now. That late night rebuild, James Dover there in the Delano built racing machine. So very good to have him back with us. Meanwhile, let's take a look at what's happening on track. Ross Walker there in that BMW M4. And just glancing back at these comments, so all the Fusion Owners Club are following the team. So that would explain part of the numbers, why there's so many of you. Christian Holmes saying, great quality coverage, great commentary, great coverage. Just wish we could hear the cars. Again, you know, we do have microphones around the track. The problem is Anglesey being a little island in the middle of the sea, basically, is so windy that the microphones are just picking up this overpowering wind noise. It's louder than the cars, at least from the perspective of a microphone. So they've had to turn that right down, because otherwise you'd just be hearing stuff getting battered by wind. So I do apologize. Hopefully when we're somewhere with milder weather, we'll be able to get you some more engine noises. But for now, Chrissy Martin there getting very racy, going very wide there, jumping that curb in that Subaru Impreza GC8, the GR Performance machine. One of a few classic shape Imprezas that we have with us here at Time Attack today. The other that springs to mind is Paul Wright in the Subaru Impreza P1 that we'll see in the next session. Meanwhile, Chrissy Martin then, let's just follow him around for this lap, the number 964 machine. Presumably called 9, so all of our Run What You Brung cars have a number that begins with 9 and is 3 digits. So I'm wondering whether Chrissy Martin also does Run What You Brung, or has done Run What You Brung in the past and made that transition into the Time Attack Championship, as we've seen a few drivers do so far. If that's the case, welcome on board, good to see. But Chrissy Martin there, currently running second in Class 4-Wheel Drive. He is up against a very, very fast driver in the form of Samuel Pickering, also at the wheel of an Impreza. This is the Subaru Impreza Type RA, the BC Racing entered machine. And Samuel Pickering then, there we go, just speak of the devil, he goes fastest in class with a 1:15.4, potentially fastest of the session so far. Yes, indeed, by a whole 2 seconds clear of anybody else. Samuel Pickering in that DIY carbon fiber machine, you heard me right. Having explored all of the other options of how to make his car faster, Samuel Pickering then turned to composites. And it's a movement that we've seen a lot more of recently, where, you know, especially through companies like Easy Composites and so on, this stuff is becoming quite accessible for every person to do at home. So Samuel Pickering then works in the the airplane industry, I think deals with materials in his day-to-day job, and feeling like he's got the confidence to build body panels out of carbon fiber. Andrew York going fastest in class with a 1:16.9 in that K20 powered Peugeot 205. The Spooks Motorsport entered machine. The number 181 car, currently second fastest overall. First fastest in class is Andy York in that Peugeot 205. Meanwhile, David Dyson in the 144 Porsche 911 GT3. Samuel Pickering goes faster still with a 1:15.4. But let's see what David Dyson can do, because he is on a flyer. He is currently half a second quicker, I believe, than Samuel Pickering's best Sector 1. And we've seen a very interesting fight develop here between David Dyson and Samuel Pickering. Yes, they are in separate classes, but they are very closely matched in terms of overall lap time. David Dyson, a very quick driver in a formidable machine. So he's just coming around to finish his lap now. You can see the purple marker there at the bottom of your screen indicating the first half of the lap was indeed purple. And what happens as he crosses the line? He goes faster still. So he now leapfrogs a whole bunch of people to go second fastest overall. First fastest in Club 2-wheel drive does David Dyson in that Porsche 911 GT3. Ross Walker then, keen and eager to displace him from that top spot in Club 2-wheel drive in that BMW M4.
Yeah, and David Dyson was saying earlier that he was going to leave it until the final to go fully flat out around the back section. You can see Ross going through now, the very fast right-hander. So I think he was saving a little bit of time for the final. So I think that's what we're seeing now.
Samuel Pickering also presumably doing that, pulling more pace out of the bag. It's an interesting part of that psychology of approaching time attack is, you know, you can keep the straight in your pocket because you've got nothing to test there. You know, you want to test your approach to the corners. You want to really try to refine your technique onto the braking zone. Perhaps, you know, there are things you want to try there. You can absolutely sandbag on the fast straights because you know you've got that time in your pocket when it counts. And of course, the final then is where these big points are going to be awarded for that championship, qualifying having awarded half points. David Dyson there going fastest of all in this session, so just taking that top spot, snatching it away from Samuel Pickering. 0.2 seconds between these two, just like we were discussing, that battle developing between David Dyson and Samuel Pickering. Let's see whether his nearest opponents in Club 2-wheel drive have any answer for that, and that's Jonathan Ellsworth in the Caterham Supersport and Ross Walker in that BMW M4, lapping a fair bit away from him, 1 to 1.2 seconds slower than David Dyson right now. Meanwhile, Mike Butler in the number 50 BMW M3, that E92 chassis, running a slightly different livery for this year, having had a bit of a DTM / factory GT2 inspired vibe on that car. Let's take a look then at Neil Greenland, who has historically been very fast in class. Whatever class he's in with that Mitsubishi Colt, he is one of the fastest out there. And currently today, at least in qualifying, not quite as high up as he would wish to be, but you can see his headlights are on, telling everybody around him that he has priority for track position because he is on a fast lap. Now, Susie, is Neil Greenland, you're going to have to fill me in a little bit here, does he do Mitsubishi Evos as well?
That I'm not actually sure on, Alexei.
Okay, because we've also got, of course, Simon Norris and the Norris Designs Mitsubishi Evo today, the Evo 9, but historically, at least for the past couple of years, he has entered with that Mitsubishi Colt, and we had this fascinating inter-Colt battle in this class, where I think both, well, at least in Simon Norris's case, a real Evo specialist and just a fast Mitsubishi genius, instead transferring all of that expertise to the Colt platform. Now back, of course, in the Evo for today. Jonathan Ellsworth in that Caterham Supersport, running all kinds of goodies. These are 140 horsepower from the factory. These are naturally aspirated. He's managed to push that up to 198 horsepower. Those of you who fiddle around with cars will of course know that naturally aspirated tuning is very expensive at the best of times, and to find an extra 58 horsepower or another, you know, you're almost looking at 50% more power out of a naturally aspirated machine. That's a serious undertaking, and Jonathan Ellsworth there at the wheel of a very serious car here today. Meanwhile, Samuel Pickering goes even faster than David Dyson. He finds 0.5 of a second on him to go around Anglesey with a 1 minute 14.3 second lap. That's quick. That is a real statement of intent. David Dyson then in that first sector, you can see it's gray at the bottom of your screen. His whole lap time then appears to be 1 minute 22, so David Dyson not really on a flyer right now. Johnny Fletcher in the number 64 machine, that Vauxhall Astra Mark IV. Let's have a look at where he is. He has been running very well so far this year in that Vauxhall Astra GSI, the number 64 machine. Currently running in 8th in class in Club 2-wheel drive with a 117.8. With 5 minutes remaining of what is quite a short lap. He's got a lot of time, perhaps 3 or 4 laps to try to improve that. Meanwhile, Sean O'Mara in the other Hyundai Integra, this being the DC2 chassis, also Delano built racing, also an Integra Type R, but the generation that came before that of James Dover. Meanwhile, Chrissy Martin then in that baby blue GR Performance Subaru Impreza GC8, currently running 7th overall and 2nd fastest in Club 4-wheel drive. Let's have a look at what's happening in the comments. Simon Norris built Neil Greenland's car. There we go, hence the green paint. Okay, do you know, I was thinking that Simon Norris's current car, that Evo, is quite similar. Big lockup there from Chrissy Martin. Susie, you've driven on this track before, right?
Yes, I
have you found it as difficult as these drivers are, locking up all over the place?
Yeah, I mean, there's some really heavy braking zones in it. It's actually a really technical track, so I'm just speaking to a lot of the drivers, they were saying that there's a lot to pick up. As you come around the back straight, the entrance into the left-hander, I'm not sure the name of it, is completely blind on the entrance to that. So onto Rocket, and then you've got a kind of switch back on the right-hand side. So yeah, it's a very technical track, and then coming down into the corkscrew as well can be very heavy on the brakes after some of the straights. So yeah, there's a lot to take in.
And somebody here mentioned actually, so that I don't know if they're saying Sam Pickering to get the Club 4-wheel drive record, or whether he has attained a record. But of course, not having been at Anglesey for as long as I've been involved in Time Attack, that does mean that there are probably, with a few new classes knocking around, there are probably lap records up for grabs here today. I don't have all of the information on that, but we could probably see some records made today. That's definitely possible.
Well, I do believe the last time Time Attack was at Anglesey, it was on a slightly different layout. So I believe it may have been using the straight, so I'm not entirely sure if the times are comparable. But yeah, it will be good to set some lap times for future. Okay.
So Simon Marsden, they're asking a good question. How does a Ford Fusion with a K20 engine conversion qualify as, for the most part, standard road car? So it's a good question. You're going back to the previous session. So the Clubman sessions, Classic and Retro Clubman and Clubman Plus and Pocket Rocket, of the classes in Time Attack are classes. You know, you look at the Pro Extreme, you look even at Club, you know, these are extensively modified in terms of, you know, chassis, aero, and so on. Now, in the Clubman classes, including Pocket Rocket, you know, in that session we had just now, Pocket Rocket is the fastest class of those three, probably, because that does allow for the largest degree of modification. So you're right. You know, Clubman and Clubman Plus, yes, you know, those are largely standard cars with safety equipment and a few other things. Pocket Rocket does allow for more modification, but not quite to the same extent as the Club classes. So that's kind of where I'm getting at. Apologies if I haven't explained that terribly well. The Clubman and Clubman Plus are very much road-going cars. Pocket Rocket cars are modified to a fair degree, but just not as much as the higher classes. So you raise a good point there, Marsden. Thanks for quizzing me on that.
One of the things that it's been interesting talking to the drivers, I don't think anybody expected today to stay dry, being in Anglesey, and actually a lot of the, you can see all the two-wheel drive cars doing really well. But then talking to a lot of the drivers, a lot of the front-wheel drive cars were kind of hoping that there may be a little bit of rain and kind of bring their cars back into the mix. So, yeah, it's been quite surprising that it stayed dry today. And I think it shows on the times as well, with the rear-wheel drive cars really kind of like dominating today.
Well, you could just see David Dyson as we were following him around for a little bit. I mean, yes, it's a 911 GT3, okay, but so not all rear-wheel drive chassis are going to be the same. But in terms of just how neatly it tucks itself around the corners, you know, it just rotates around itself. It's just perfect for a technical circuit like this. And of course, if you're running all-wheel drive or front-wheel drive, you're not going to be having that same success. You're going to be having a harder time trying to hustle that around the technical sections. Meanwhile, that Porsche 911 just turning around that central axis, just pivoting around itself beautifully. And in fact, the proof is in the pudding. David Dyson then fastest in Club 2-wheel drive. That being said, Samuel Pickering still fastest overall and fastest in Club 4-wheel drive with that Subaru Impreza Type RA with a 114.3. So I think anyone who can build a car and just fit it out with DIY carbon panels, you know, anyone who in their garage, on their driveway, can build a car that can outlap a 911 GT3, that is a serious effort, and I think massive commendment due there to Samuel Pickering for that. So the checkered flag is out, and these drivers then just making their way back into the pit lane. Ross Walker there in that BMW M4.
What I didn't realise actually about Ross's car is I believe it's an ex-Palmer Sport car. That's originally where the shell came from.
Oh, no way! Okay, so...
I found that out today, yeah. Okay.
So it's had all kinds of Muppets trying to mash it around Brands Hatch. That's a bold choice. I hear when they get sold, they're sold quite cheap, as far as BMW M4s go. And I imagine they're probably reasonably well maintained. That's smart. Ross Walker's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I believe Mike Butler's car might be the same as well. Don't take my word on that. But
okay.
yeah, that might be where they're getting the shells from.
Okay. There we go. Time Attack Championship 4-wheel drive, Club 4-wheel drive results up on your screen now. Samuel Pickering leading the way from Chrissy Martin, both of them in Subaru Imprezas, albeit of different generations. And Club 2-wheel drive, popular as ever. David Dyson then fastest. By how much is that? 0.8, 0.9 of a second clear of Jonathan Ellsworth, and then Ross Walker, who we were just discussing, brings up the final trio with 116.0, so 1.4 seconds there, splitting first to third in Club 2-wheel drive. Andy York there in the single round entry Spooks Motorsport car with a 116.9, doing well to put the cat amongst the pigeons there. Fourth fastest out of a very competitive order. So no timing screen for me right now. So we're gonna have to go off what's on our feed from the cameras alone, and hopefully benefit from those overlays. We're going to literally be just watching the same feed as what you've got on your screens, with the feed along the left-hand side of the screen, whilst I try to reconnect my TSL screen. Those of you watching along at home, absolutely do connect to TSL Timing Solutions Limited, and you can have all that data at your fingertips. It's super handy. Because Susie and I can't possibly get around to absolutely everybody here. So if you are interested in following a particular driver, or you're just mad about Time Attack, I really recommend you bring up the TSL timing screen on your secondary device if you have such a thing handy. Meanwhile then, our pro cars are now underway. So you
see
can...
Darren Spooner out there, and Darren was one of the people telling me he actually wished for a little bit of a wet day. It's kind of really helping the car and kind of helps to even out the pack for him. But yeah, sadly for him, it's been surprisingly warm and dry here today in Anglesey.
I think everybody was expecting rain, and even when you look at the drivers' WhatsApp group, everything was looking like rain. You know, people were sharing screenshots from like the Apple Weather app, Reuters, BBC, Met Office, whatever. Everything was saying rain. People came here expecting rain, and I expect the front-wheel drive guys are going to be disappointed to not have had rain. I know from my own experience in a class with mixed drivetrains, I was front-wheel drive. I was always hoping for rain because that would just completely balance out. You know, not even balance out. It was firmly in the favor of front-wheel drive cars when it was raining. Rear-wheel drive was just all over the place. Although naturally much better in the dry, the wet really put the ball in our court. So sadly, not the case here today for the front-wheel drive guys. But anyways, most.
Darren did say the car is going really well, and actually they're hoping to push really hard on the final and see maybe if they can get a lap record. So we'll see how he does.
Okay, meanwhile then, let's have a look. So the screen is now back, and Colin Dorward in that Mitsubishi Evo 5. As I have now learned, thanks everyone for getting stuck in the comments. So he's in that Mitsubishi Evo 5. Was very, very quick earlier on, as you've seen. And now, of course, this is the final. This is where those points are awarded. So let's see. This is where it really counts. Let's just have a look at what you're saying in the comments. Why did the flag come out with over a minute on the clock? Are the sessions being reduced due to running late? I believe so. It catches me out as well because I'm just using the timing screen. I can see the time is set currently to 11.5 minutes, and then the session ends earlier than I expect. And yeah, you know, it's currently 6:30 p.m. We do have curfews to keep, so I think the longer the day runs, the shorter the sessions need to be. And so sometimes that does mean making little last-minute tweaks to the schedule. Darren Spooner there making his way around in that Spooks Motorsport machine, and like Andy York's, this one is still Peugeot powered. Andrew Barber meanwhile going very, very fast indeed, putting in a 1 minute 10.6 second lap, faster than anybody so far. Meanwhile, Simon Norris, just thought I heard a supercharger there in the background. I think one of these Evos is twin charged.
Yep,
I'm looking at our local resident Evo expert.
That will be the Norris Evo, yes.
Oh, that one is twin charged. Okay, well there we go. Oh, Roman Grendel going pretty slowly there. Hopefully that's not a retirement. We don't want to have a red flag right now. We're running late enough as it is. Simon Norris then in that twin charged Mitsubishi Evo 9 short wheelbase, going fastest of all on its comeback with a 1 minute 8.9 second lap. Very fast, 1.6 seconds clear. Red flag. We saw that car of Roman Grendel looking like it was grinding to a halt earlier on. Looks like the red flag is out.
Yeah,
Andrew, go on.
The Simon Norris car, I mean, it's quite a machine. It's been around in time sack for a long time, but yeah, the engine is actually mounted longitudinally. It's actually running a Skyline gearbox as well. The engine is incredibly far set back. It's so much further back than a standard Evo engine. So it's it's obviously it's a short wheelbase as well. Doesn't have the rear doors as a normal Evo does as well. So yeah, it's definitely not your average Evo.
I mean, you're in your element in this class. You know, I'm quite glad you've joined me actually, because I must admit I don't know a huge deal about Mitsubishi Evos, to the point where people in the comments were correcting me for misidentifying one. So it's good to know. I know Simon Norris of Norris Designs is a huge deal in the Evo world, and that car, you just look at it, you know it's an extreme build. But it's good to have that extra knowledge. So longitudinally mount, longitude or longitude?
I am not quite sure. That one.
Okay,
one of those.
that one. That's really interesting. Okay, and I wonder.
Yeah, married to the Skyline gearbox as well, because it can be a classic failure point for the Evos in the big power cars. Is the transmission is obviously a weak point on them. And so it's mated to a Hollinger gearbox that's more typically found in a Skyline. So it's a lot stronger for it.
Okay. It looks like a checkered flag might be out. Just hang on a second, please. So, so we're just trying to work out now. Sorry for that silence. I was just having a thinking out loud. You didn't need to witness that. Not sure whether we've got a checkered flag or a red flag, what the deal is right now. I did see the car of Roman Grendel going quite slowly. I don't know if that's what's brought out the flag. We're just waiting for information on that. I am mindful that it is 6:30 p.m. I don't know if there are curfew considerations at play. Not too sure. Marshals, you can just see the marshals there leaving their posts. So by the looks of things, that is the end of today's running in Time Attack. You can see the marshal. You know, if we don't have marshals, we can't have racing. This is why we're so appreciative of them joining us and volunteering their time to make this sport possible. And if the marshals aren't here, that means that there is no more motorsport. So that is that, actually. What a shock. So there we go. Now, I am not too sure what this means in terms of the results. I'd recommend that you check back on the Time Attack website once the official final results are published. Are they going to go with the qualifying results? Are they going to go with you know, most of our drivers have actually set a fast lap. They have set a timed lap. So I'm not too, you know, that one I can't fill you in on. That's kind of up to race control and the regulations and so on. So I'd ask you to wait, please, just briefly, and then check on the Time Attack website or social pages a little later for those final official results. But there we go, a shock early finish for Time Attack today. Let's just have a look at these comments. Norris's car started life as a road legal car back in the 10 of the best days. Chris Atkins, what was the red flag for? I'm not too sure. Norris is smashing it. Norris is smashing it. He was smashing it. Been smashing it all day. Great to see him back. Anyway, that rounds up our coverage for Time Attack today. So thank you, Susie, for jumping into the box late in the day as it is.
Thank you for having me up here. It's a little bit of a change of scenery, but yeah, it's been good.
And yeah, thank you, of course, to all of our viewers, drivers, marshals, streaming team, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. And yeah, we'll be back soon for the next round of Time Attack. So thank you very much, and good night.